the enforcers of the law. And that is what we did, and we've not taken action for.
And all we are saying is justice must be served. Straight to the police station. We need to be there. Oliver needs to be granted.
Charged with publication responsibility. We connect after the break.
You can now self-activate your Momo. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my class.
So now you know. Activate your MTN Momo account on your phone all by yourself. Just dial *179. I'm using MTN Momo because...
Didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office
plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom. Wow, Mom, that makes...
Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books, Furniture, Stationery and Equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema, 0302 764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website, www.kingdomgh.com.
Health. With a leading international track record, Apex Health Insurance is regulated and licensed and international medical solutions at
83914
or 0232 00 your preferred health insurer.
Hey, Evercoco, what brings you to my house this early morning? I hope all is well.
All is never well with me, Nick Bakbo. After paying 3 times for the land for my project, the construction workers are now giving me wahala. From material overestimation to small stealing. I am tired.
As people, Edlum has products tailored to meet your needs. Contemporary but super affordable apartments. Prices start from edlumhousing.com or simply call 0270 166 166.
Allianz. Insurance since 1890 packages to suit all pocket children's education and your future. Call us on 0302 267 892. We secure your future.
Is Ghana Connect. It's dominated the headlines, this arraignment and further detention for the Fix the Country. Very serious charges that, if convicted, comes with a prison sentence that is for life. That has sparked a series of or what you typed or had claimed. So there are 2 others who have also been charged, the force, and the court deemed it to be in contempt, and so is serving a 14-day jail term. Had tried to have him produce free speech and responsibility. Decided to use was one that talks about the publication of false news. There's a sense by some that is engaging with on across our social media platform a justification to still have it there. Of course, at a time when we've seen sometimes the crossing of that line media platforms. If you're on Twitter and later on the show today, as you may know already, this agitated a significant number.
And if indeed Akufo-Addo call us all as fellow Ghanaians.
Well, articulate his views very freely. He lives in a country celebrated for its ability to encourage free speech, but he's a Ghanaian too, and so he has experience from both worlds.
As well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm fantastic, man. We'll get your thoughts shortly. We'll talk about that very shortly. Elisha is a crypto trader and a debater. Well, debaters always use the power of language and speech. If you're joining us via Zoom, please kindly mute because I could hear a lot of noise in the background there. Kabu Nate is a student. We'll connect with us shortly. I still am hearing a bit of noise there. Great to have you join us. I like the compass himself. He's an activist who also called the studio. Hello, Yolanda.
Hi.
Great to have you. Also connecting in the studio. Wherever you are tonight, you can, if you've already engaged with. It's been trending on social media if you go on Twitter for quite a while now. So let's talk about it. Especially that Twitter poll that we put up, because there's some of you have expressed a fear We ran a poll on this. We'll tell you what you said on the Joy FM Twitter page and on the Joy News Twitter pages as well. Hashtag Ghana Connect. Foreign view on everything else that has happened tonight. I mean, Force, I want to connect with you first because, I mean, you work on radios. Some of them spending time.
Well, thank you very much, Evans, and I really appreciate you allow me to connect today on this very issue that really speaks volume, calling the Media Commission to actually start acting. I think we have things. It will get to a point where some of the freedom that's been up for a question. Where do we stop and allow the law enforcers of the land to do any platform at all, which talks about freedom of speech, saying any platform at all is freedom of speech? Let's have consequences, because and I'll use the UK as an example. He has cost people, they nearly lynched the opposition leader by a pedophile who was passed away that he wasn't brought to justice. So where's Ghana at the moment? Because we're not actually teaching the generation behind us any good views or good freedom of speech. If the police are doing the job, we should not point hands to any government entity.
The police simply doing their jobs, allow them to do it.
You need to look at the issue in proper, with a certain very holistic sense and appreciate the context that we live in. And so I think that to a certain extent, I can understand where, but generally in Ghana, and particularly also if we free as well, that in the youth cemetery, that the management, and so particularly because that have happened, right? But we did not get a sort of response that we are seeing. And that for me is the context that is missing in this whole conversation. And so you would notice that this has become such an important matter, and particularly for the Ghana Police Service, especially in the case of Mr. Bobie Mensah, because of the people, the principle that the police is applying out to be forced about another person. Our laws currently, as they apply here in Ghana, allow room for people to really not allow this sort of intrusion and not make it a norm. It's because the nature of speech is such that in many instances, idea of protection of freedom of expression is that people need to be able to articulate even the most rambunctious of pens. Because if that element is not there, and all we are going to do is and many other people will be cowed into this atmosphere of being conformist.
So stay with me. I want to get the thoughts of others. And first, I'll come to you on that particular point. Do you agree with that? You should be allowed to be, to use the word
So thank you very much, Evans. I think that rights are, of course, are not actually completely absolute. And so that is why we see false information in relation. And so I don't think that rights in themselves are absolute. And even that is applicable in states. Definitely when you are going to prison, of course, your right to freedom of association and all that also will be capped away by the state. So rights in themselves are not absolute. And the state can actually take away these rights when it feels necessary.
So, I mean, okay, Yolanda, what do you make? What's your take on that?
I did was we dealt with different, and honestly feel that there should be a certain amount of room given to offense. Somebody hold them accountable to that. But let us also notice how in the past we've seen how problematic it was to try to stifle one to begin with. So if we go game of politics, in any instance where political issues are involved, somebody is bound to get offended. There should be
in exercising free speech. Yeah?
Me.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think before
Elisha.
we get to how time talks about Cleopatra, where the you being involved, the problem here is who interprets when whatever you are doing is harmful to society, because right, or that can then exercise that limitation and say that whatever you are doing at this moment is harmful, or what amount of offense is not this, to look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, have I done this before? Has anybody on my side? Absolutely no reason to go after.
Wasn't Kabu? You are a law student yourself and you're a journalist. Throw in the argument of equalization, right? Is a word they use. Equalization. They say, but when it to dispersing, is that even
these times is justified leaders in the helm of affairs, and we've not had any reaction toward any arrest and any manhandling and what have you. So they have a point with that. But point is, when you are caught in the law, you can imagine the sort of, chaotic situation we'll find ourselves in. But Evans, I think that the law is quite clear. When they break, journey where we have the criminal libel law, we have the Preventive Detention Act, and what have you, democracy. And just like one of our senior citizens said, it comes with a cost, a lot of expression of how perhaps the media helped for us to get independence and all that. Article 164 is quite clear.
No, but what you're saying is interesting. Make room for offense. If you then you cannot say that, well, them being a bit irresponsible.
Yeah, so there's a self mechanism in the law, and sometimes the use of clawback clauses help. And freedom of speech should be absolute. So when you tell me that you are now taking it from me, then it seems you should have balance. And so this is where I bring in the point that we need to have a balance. And the Constitution is quite clear. First off, Article 162 grants the media, unfettered freedom and independence. But if you read 164, it's in the reputation rights of individuals, the next person, beside you. If you also look at the provision of the powers to maintain traditional, to carry out their tradition, 6 of the Electronic Communications Act 2000 of about 36,000 CDs, or Constitution gives you unfettered freedom in one breath, but it also imposes on you responsibility. Right? The judiciary is there. And, and the problem with this balance of, instilling some bit of discipline on the airwaves abuses some case. We were told that the police Brookman said, looking at our history, coming thus far, a court said right to go and then express his concern about him, handled him properly according to Article 19 and 40. We will not be here having this conversation. So the abuse of power is
Yes, he's just basically. I was going to concentrate a bit more on that one article clearly out there, because it's very important that we do that. If you look at freedom of speech, pornography, speech integral to illegal conduct, speech that incites eminent lawless actions that can violate intellectual properties as well. So because we have police, if they give everybody a level playing point, I stated earlier on in this conversation, let the police do.
On the point about being, it's not given by the state, it is inherent. But the mere fact that you just live and express and enjoy those rights as you are granted just simply by birth. Hasn't been an even fair application. Bono chairman arrested, charged with the same law. The three. Other 3 also charged with the same act. Oliver is different because
it's very easy for us to, and I don't think that is what it is. And the biggest problem is Fortson, or I'm not sure if that's the name, says that people have to speak in a particular way, and then there are categories of in any of those categories.
Question of interpretation. Yeah, though. I think I've heard from some of the connectors here that they agree that it's only to
the police part.
Okay.
That the judiciary is total. So there's a problem there that I think we need to address in this particular conversation. The part about the police arresting people is a good, but the part about the police arresting people is perfectly fine. Would this continue? If not because there are any instances, historically speaking, like Karim said.
So you're making a point that you believe if the conversation about fairness had not happened, you don't solve the fairness question, does it?
I can't believe this.
No, it doesn't, because there have been instances where they have picked or radio companies or media companies ransacked. They accuse each other of and all of that has been swept. And responsibility, as we cite whether I need the person is guilty.
Evans, you made a point there, and I just wanted to say that it's very, hindsight is a very beautiful thing, and we can always keep going back. But when we start on a trajectory, let's just try and propagate the trajectory that we are on. You made a point that people have been arrested, and I just believe that it should be continuous. Whoever makes a wrongful or incite anything of that sort, the bit that got me talking is when the police arrest people, we should stop making it political, because that is what is killing the country. The police should be seen as an entity. Yes, they're dead. They might be biased sometimes, but let's try and focus on the fact that they're doing the right thing. That is all I want to say for now, Evans.
Karim, you can't agree with that. You can't disagree with that, can you?
I mean, I completely disagree, because you see, the problem is that it sounds as though what Force is saying is the obvious. I mean, it's a truism that we should allow institutions of state to do their work. But the context is very important, and I think that he is overlooking that, and I wonder why that would be so. Because, and that's why even you and many other people are having a challenge. Because now, depending on how one looks at it, then it would appear that if Abronya DC is arrested, then it should settle the matter. What I have articulated here, and I think that should be what the conversation should be about, is a more principled position on what freedom of expression is and what the police responsibility would be in all of this. Because like I've said, if we have a police, because number one, Evans, do we even appreciate what this freedom of expression that we are talking about is? Because if we don't, we cannot then proceed with the conversation at all. What I'm saying is that what is free speech if it doesn't have the possibility of offending? But the point is that the police role should not be one that looks at like a benign dictator, so that if you say something and the police doesn't like it, they swoop at you. I have told you, and you know, many other people know, that there already is a law, especially on issues of defamation, to address those concerns in a civil court. It is not up to the police to swoop in and come with all the forces there are to come and be arresting people and all of that. Because when you do that, the signal that you send generally is one of intolerance. And you see, the problem I have generally is that we can't be seen to be practicing this democracy, and somehow when it comes to certain things, we pick and choose what we want. I've made this point, and I will say it again here, that if you look, for instance, at what Oliver Barker said, or many other people who comment on issues of coup and all of that, isn't it quite problematic that you are practicing democracy, a system that itself is only different from autocratic arrangements because of freedom and opportunity for people to have choices? Why can't someone say, for instance, that even under a democracy, I would prefer a military dictatorship or an authoritarian rule? Why must that get us so scared? Why must that infantilize us so much to the point that what we can only do in those instances is to, stop those people from articulating those views and all of that? So it is not a case about whether they have arrested somebody from the ruling government or whatever that is. The point is, on this trajectory, should we, if we ask ourselves realistically and pragmatically, how far can the Ghana Police Service go? If ultimately we want a society, let me just finish on this one. Okay. If ultimately we want a society that respects one another, that is tranquil, that is peaceful and all of that, ask yourself, which is the better way to go about this? When we allow ideas, even to the point of offense, to interact, and when people have an issue, they take that issue up themselves, or have an omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient police force that goes about arresting people because they have said something that at the point of that statement, the police considered to be false. And so then we go about that. For me, is where the problem is, because it sends the wrong signals. And tomorrow, you may keep quiet or may not articulate a certain view in a way that would, rough some shoulders, some feathers and all of that. And for me, that's why I'm worried about this. I feel very passionate about this, because the free expression that we talk about cannot be cast in this mold where only things that seem very nice and all of Ghana is not. We're not kids. So let's stop this behavior and this thinking that somehow we are not mature enough, and that if people go about saying things that offend other people, the nation is going to end up in rubble and all of that. I completely disagree with that.
Yeah, let's put the question this way, Yolanda. So let's say you're in the US, and I'll put that to Force because he's in the UK. Do you think that if you were in the US, if any of these comments were made or written in the US, somebody would have been arrested, for example, and put before court, and possibly put behind bars?
I think that Well, it's a shaky situation, so it's possible that typically would be overlooked because it's going to be like, oh, these people make like when they're feeling emotional about issues, they just say whatever comes to their minds, and then they get away with this like nobody cares because they know that in the end it's not going to happen. Or somebody could get up and say, listen, I feel threatened that you posted this comment, so I'm going to sue you. And I think that's the point that Karim is trying to make, that there are structures that allow anybody that takes offense or that thinks like this is problematic to then say that, look, I'm going to take you to court and sue you because you made me feel this way, and I feel that you have done this against me by making this comment.
That is in the case when it's about an individual, okay?
Okay.
But what if in the comment has to do with the potential destabilizing of the democracy, right? I mean, then what happens? I guess is a key question. How
Okay.
should the state approach it? Should we? I mean, Karim's argument is that inherent in the ability to make that expression is the evidence of the strength of your democracy. That's the point he's making. You agree?
Not necessarily. I think that at any point in time, due to stresses outside of democracy, including like economic impact, especially looking at how COVID has made countries very volatile and everything, it becomes problematic. There's already like enough problems, enough troubles. So definitely the government will try to interrogate issues that seem to come at the very core of the society that they live in, which is democracy. So honestly speaking, based on that, I would say that if a comments like that were passed, especially by someone as influential as Oliver, then definitely in the US they would investigate that and then hold him accountable if necessary.
Okay, Cleopatra, where do you stand on this debate?
Well, I think largely it's about the sort of retaliation methods that would be used. Because when you look at America and you look at the sort of democracy and the systems of freedom that exist in their state, you realize that, well, if such statements are actually being made, there's always going to be this sort of soft stance to it because of, like Yolanda implies, no one might really pay attention to it because they just assume it's part of everyday life. But you see, Ghana is completely different. And so because of that, the political climate in itself already necessitates that, of course, they want to have some sort of police intervention or national security operatives doing that as well also. So it's just like about the approach in particular. In America, the approach would definitely be a softer stance, but in Ghana, it seems these days and as of late, since 2017, ever since the NPP government has come to power, the approach has rather been a harder one where we are seeing national security operatives, like Yolanda says, destroying people's offices and taking journalists not on their own will and all that also. So I largely agree with Yolanda's proposition.
I mean, for the challenging question to you then is, you live in the UK. You say, yeah, allow the police to do their work. But if you, I know you won't say it, but if you had come close to saying any of what people had said here recently, which of course have been taken to court and arrested, do you think in the UK the police would step in?
Evans, the simple answer is yes, because
they
would
would
have systems. Oh yes, they would. It's happened before. I'm not going to go into details because it happens. It happens in the UK. UK, they're very, very careful about what's channeled any radio station. They have police systems that monitor, even going as far as monitoring Twitter feeds and influential people saying things on Twitter, having to apologize and having to even go as far as go to court. Police have actually reprimanded a few people. It happens, but it's all subjective to the temperature in the country, and let's be very honest about it. The temperature in the whole world at the moment is very hot. COVID has dismantled everything. People under loads of pressure. Prices have risen everywhere in the world, and there are loads of things. So we have to be careful of our utterances, and that is where my problem is. And Karimi's been making some very, what I call it points, because I struggle to accept the fact that I don't know whether Karim has been in a war-torn country before or seen how words have changed a whole nation and brought it to its feet with bodies lying everywhere before. I don't know whether he's seen it before. I don't wish that on Ghana. We've been through that. And based on our history, we have to be really careful with our utterances. And I still stand by allowing the police to do their job.
Okay, so there is another leg of this conversation that we try to measure on social media, which is the law itself. One of the laws that have been used very often recently, the law on publication of false news. We're asking you, should that law be repealed to prevent abuse by the state? Manuel joins me with what you've been saying on this.
So, Evans, you have 68% of respondents on the Joy FM Twitter handle responding and saying, yes, let's repeal the law. And then 32% saying that, no, let's not repeal the law.
Okay, so there's a people are in favor of repealing the
Indeed.
law. Okay,
Indeed.
because that question was asked to prevent abuse by the state.
Indeed.
So people saying yes, repeal it, so that you stop
the,
people. State from
abusing
it.
State.
Okay, that's interesting. We also put up a similar poll on the Joy News page, and there too same overwhelming majority, 76%, say yes, repeal that law to prevent the state from abusing it, and 24% say no, do not repeal it. I mean, so if you put the two together, overwhelmingly, there's a view out there. It's not scientific, but it gives you a sense of what people are thinking. That law needs to be repealed to, just like they repealed the criminal libel law.
And people actually express themselves in support or otherwise to their answers that they've been providing. For instance, Awintu Mansimon says, what is false news and what kind of false news warrants an arrest? I see government officials who use TV stations and public deba to say things which turn out to be false. Isn't that false news also? And that's the question that Awintuma is asking.
Yeah, I mean, also Grateful Regardless says nobody controls your words, and I think people should be made to own or be responsible for their own words. If not checked, it has the potential to create chaos. Freedom of speech is totally absolute. The law should be maintained, he says. Also maintain the law. Michael says false information, or should I say misinformation, is a crime that must be merited with the same punishment as the case of cyber crimes and other fraudulent acts. Words and actions easily spread in milliseconds these days. So I'm in favor of the law being passed, he says. Well, not passed, as in
Well, Ejaya from North Kanishi says that the fact that the police doesn't apply the law evenly provides a challenge as when or who it should be applied on. However, is there a law like that, and is the police using it the right way? Otherwise, how do we address those kinds of irresponsible speeches in the name of journalism? That's a Jayal asking that question from North Kanishi. Well, this one says, what is false news and what kind of false news warrants an arrest? I see, so I've actually read this one from Twitter already. And false information, this one says, hello at Joy FM. Good evening, Evans Mensah. Oh yes, the law on publication of false news should be repealed to prevent abuse by the state. Hashtag Ghana Connect. And this one says, the test of democracy is not whether the people vote, but whether the people rule. A poor man has much more interest in good government than a rich man, and a poor man must stay and be misgoverned. A rich man has a yacht, and that's a G.
At the least sign of chaos, he's
Indeed,
off.
He's off, and so that's one is also coming on our WhatsApp console.
Okay. Let me quickly go to my connectors to wrap up on that last question we asked in the poll. Let me start with you from Zoom on this, Kabu. Should that law on publication of false news be repealed? Where do you stand?
Evans, I'm pretty much careful of just giving straightforward answers. But if a law like this proves to be abused more often, you want to look at a few other things before you think of taking it out of the books. One is, what are the abuses, and is there a way? Are there even mechanisms already instituted for you to check those laws, those abuses? That's the first thing. So you need to trigger them. Another two is, at every point in a country's life, you need to decide what you want. For instance, in those days, we had no new media. And so, I mean, the whole idea, the sophisticated nature of committing crimes and saying anything at all, like Karim is suggesting in our previous topic of mere anarchy, everyone says what he or she like, to a time where you want to now regulate what people say because there's so much nuisance, there's infodemic, this COVID-19, we saw a lot of people, spreading false information and all that. Do we want to still hold on to the fact that rights should be absolute, freedom of speech should be absolute? And even when there are, advancements that need more laws to regulate those advancements, we say that, well, let those laws be. And sometimes you need to appreciate the inherent checks in these laws. For instance, what I get from laws is that it doesn't only tell you what to do, but tells you how to do it. So the Section 76 that of the Electronic Communications Act that I talk about, which I think is the Publication of False News Bill that you're talking about, gives you the penalty, that you are liable to paying, or instead what you are likely to face, and so is deterrent enough. Two, whoever is enforcing the law, again, Article 23 and Article 296 all tells you the discretionary powers and administration of these enforcement of laws. And so laws, those who took part or participated in the polls should not just take it like, okay, when we repeal it, then that ends our problems. Because even when we don't have criminal libel law, we still have traces of it, for which people are scared that this perhaps is trying to snatch it through the back door. So
exactly.
whether you have laws or not, you would have clandestine government and individuals.
So your position is what? I mean, you are in the middle.
My position is, before even think of repealing it, we should ask ourselves these questions, because when you repeal it, then there is even no reference point to penalizing any offense that comes out of it. And Evans, believe you me, if care is not taken, we're going to have a very chaotic situation where everyone does what he or she wants.
Yeah, so I hear you say, I hear you tilting more towards do not repeal it. Be more cautious about repealing. Let me bring Elijah. Elijah, should we repeal it or not to prevent state abuse?
I'd also go with what Kabunate is saying, that I can't give a straight yes or no answer.
Okay, but where you lean? Because he's clearly leaning more towards don't repeal than repeal.
I'm thinking, so Force said something like, oh, these laws can be subjective to the period or the climate. And if that is the case, then it should go away. Because if today it is COVID that we are using as an excuse, tomorrow it could be the fact that we have a history of violence in the past, which means that the violence can come back at any time. So you have a forever emergency where the state is constantly in an emergency situation, or we as a people are always scared that something bad is going to happen to us because of one reason or another.
So should we repeal it or not?
It's an interesting question.
Okay, you don't have an answer. Yolanda, repeal to prevent abuse by the state, or keep it?
I'm leaning more towards repeal.
Okay.
I feel that there are other check-in mechanisms. So, for example, if media houses bring out wrong information, probably due to ignorance or misinformation on themselves, because of credibility, because of reputation, because of other mechanisms in place socially, they find it like they have a responsibility then to cancel it out and then issue out a message or a communique,
an apology,
saying we didn't know this or that. And then that also like fact checking
so you think that it offers, keeping it there offers a check of a sort?
Exactly.
Okay. Let me bring Force. Force, quickly. I have just 30 seconds to wrap up. Should we repeal or keep it?
I think we should keep it because checks and balances is really the best way to actually make sure that everybody falls in line, because we can all make mistakes. And when we make mistakes, there should be a law that actually brings us back in line.
Karim, quick 20 seconds. Repeal or keep?
Well, I think we should not touch it. But also, I think that the government is obviously more dangerous than the madman walking on the streets. And so I don't agree that for our safety and all of that, we should allow the government have more power.
Okay. Very interesting. I'm not sure where that leaves the conversation or whether to repeal the law or not, but it gives you a sense that, people having a conversation. Keep talking to us on Twitter, Facebook, and our main